Now that we've completed our 1516 workflow, we added it to a container and we went ahead and copied that container so that we could use it for 1112. We just need to go ahead and reconfigure our tools so that they run the 1112 year workflow. The first tool that we need to reconfigure is our input data tool. We want to go ahead and click on that tool and then click on the drop-down menu to redirect it to pick up the 1112 file. This file is only going to have one sheet, just like the 1516 file, so we can go ahead and leave that clicked and click on OK. Once we do so, we want to go ahead and run. We're likely to get a lot of errors out of this to begin with, but we're not going to worry about those because we reconfigured the rest of our tools. We just want to see the data in Alteryx before we start moving on. And we can see that this data set also needs substantial cleaning. So we go ahead and we click on our data cleansing tool. We verify that all of our fields are selected and that our default configurations are fine here. And we do the same thing for the second data cleansing tool. And we verify that the configuration to remove punctuation is still desired. Then we click on our filter and we look back at our filter to see that the FIPS code has not changed for Hawaii, so this filter will yield only the rows pertaining to Hawaii. And then we can go to our select tool to make sure that this is configured appropriately. We have our 3 header rows defined. And now we need to make sure that these fields have not changed. So to do that, we can go back to the Excel file and we can start to scroll over until we find the outflow and the inflow. And here we start to see that we're at the outflow return. And the first field is labeled 57. Well, plus the 3 header rows, that would be starting on field 60. And now we need to go all the way over until we come to the inflow, and we see that this one starts at 85, which means that our outflow field ended at 84. Plus 3 makes it 87. 85 plus 3 makes that field 88. And then we can go over to our last column for our inflow, and we see that that's at 112. Well, if we add our 3 rows or 3 columns at the beginning, that takes us to 115. So moving back to our select tool, we see that we started with field 60 and we went all the way down to field 115, so we don't have to reconfigure this tool either. When we get to the formulas, however, we have the years in each of the formulas. So this needs to be changed so that each of these formulas, instead of reading 1516, are now going to read 1112. So we want to go ahead and click in the name box for each one of these formulas. And we want to change the names from 1516 to 11 and 12. And this can take a little bit because we have quite a number of formulas that we had to enter. So we just want to keep clicking through each one of our age groups to get all of these formulas reconfigured to be the appropriate years. We could have also taken care of this by using a select tool at the end to rename these from 1516 to 1112. That's another option. We could have also avoided naming any of the formulas with a year until the end and then dealt with the naming at the end. But we do need each of our years to have a distinct name to designate the year that it's coming from, because eventually we're going to want to combine all of our data from all of our years into one file so that we can compute average migrations by age and AGI, and also look at trends of migration over time. Fortunately, it does not take as long to adjust the names of these fields as it did to create the formulas in the first place. So similar to the other discussion that we had on the state level migration file, the benefit to Alteryx is typically that altering a few configurations tends to be faster than having to alter or repeat a process in Excel over time. So as you can see, just as we were talking here, I am almost done renaming all of our fields to designate it as coming from the 11-12 year instead of the 15-16 year. So one final set of formulas for our group over 65. And then we're done reconfiguring this tool. Now that we have our formulas, we can go ahead and run. You should see some additional errors, and these errors are going to come in, or warnings are going to come in, because there's a lot of fields that Alteryx is now looking for, both in the data cleansing tool and the select tool, that are no longer there. So we're going to want to go ahead and reconfigure our select tool so that we select all of our fields that are available. As you can see, we have a lot of the net fields, but we don't have any of the 11, 12 fields selected. And we're going to want to remove any leading and trailing white spaces, so that configuration part is fine. Then when we come to our select tool, we have two options. One, we can unselect everything and then just select the fields that we need, or we can deselect the fields that we no longer need. So here we're going to take the first option of selecting the fields that we need. So we're going to click once to develop the right hand pointing arrow, and then we're going to go to the bottom of our 1112 configuration, and we're going to hit our shift button, and we're going to click again. Then we're going to select the down arrow from the options, and we're going to use the select highlighted fields. Right below that are all the fields that are now designated as being missing, so we're going to do the same process where we click, shift, click, and then use the options to deselect these highlighted fields. Finally, we can go back in and get rid of all of the net fields that we did not need, those intermediary beginning and ending year AGI fields that were not converted to a dollar basis. And now that we're done that, we have completely configured our workflow for 11 and 12, and we can go ahead and run all of our steps. And when we look at our output file, we should have all of our net numbers for 11 and 12. And it shows that we have 32 fields in this particular data set. So I'm going to want to go back and verify why we have an extra field relative to the other data set, to make sure that we don't have a field highlighted that we don't need. So I'm going to go back to my select tool, and I'm going to scroll down and make sure that none of my nets are selected when they shouldn't be.